You are now listening to an episode of Hidden Voices, so sit back, relax, and enjoy our community podcast. Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Hidden Voices. This is season 2 of the Hidden Voices podcast with ScribersHive.com. I'm your host Samir. Today I'm joined with Farah, the co-founder and director of UPress. Farah, how you doing?
I'm good, Samir. Thank you for having me today, and I'm really excited to be part of this new season as well.
This year we're going to have a more structured approach towards the Hidden Voices podcast. That being said, all the previous episodes are now up on ScribersHive as well as SoundCloud and YouTube for you to view. This season will specifically look at life. So for today's episode, we'll be focusing on different aspects of family. With us today, our guests, Moses, Ridwan, and Kaled. So we're just going to go round table and introduce ourselves, starting with Moses.
So, hi everyone. As mentioned, my name is Moses. I am the artistic director for an organization called Writers and Scribes. We've done quite a few things with ScribersHive, so it's always a pleasure to be involved and included in different things. And I am a father of 3, husband, and an all-round creator, really. Yeah, so that's a bit about me.
Hey, what have you learned so far during this quarantine, Moses?
Oh, yes. So you know what? During the quarantine, there was a lot of talk about being productive. But I just found for me, there was a real emphasis just to spend time with family. So I think for me, I've just gained a deeper appreciation for my family. My wife and I just had another child. He's about 7 months now. So yeah, just appreciate it. So just watching him grow has been really great. So it's like, it feels a bit selfish, but quarantine has actually just allowed me to enjoy my family a lot more, and not be running around with the business of trying to run a business. So yeah, that for me, learning is just to appreciate my family a lot more.
And you know what? It's amazing as well, like, because the theme that we chose for this season is family, and it couldn't come at a really good time because during this coronavirus lockdown, we're spending time with family, and it's beautiful to see that as well. And how about you, Kaled? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've learned so far during this lockdown.
Yeah, I live with my parents, with 4 other siblings, and my sister moved out recently. She's pregnant, so there'll be another addition to the family soon.
Amazing! Congratulations.
What I learned so far this quarantine is that how vulnerable we are as a society. And I never expected this in our lifetime, that such a virus can disrupt everything everywhere. I also found it really depressing, to be honest, being locked down in the house all the time with these young kids running around. And also, I really do miss football. I'm a massive Liverpool fan. I find life without football really boring. I don't know how many people go without watching football at all.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kaled. Moving on, how about you, Ridwan? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you experienced the quarantine.
Hi, so my name is Ridwan. I am a recent graduate, and I'm passionate about connecting and helping people out. So far, my experience this quarantine, it made me learn a bit more about myself. So I realized I am quite an extrovert. So I do miss going out and going to events and stuff like that. But it had also made me realize that I can connect with people even more through online, on WhatsApp, Facebook, and it made me being able to take my time out and actually connect with people I haven't spoken to in years, see how they're doing. And I think that has helped me out a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, Ridwan. Amazing. And I think we haven't heard from our host, Samir. Tell us a little bit about yourself as well, what you've taken away from this lockdown.
Sure. So my name's Samir, obviously. Other than being the co-host of Hidden Voices, I'm also a project coordinator and editor at UPress. For what I've learned during this lockdown is the importance of family, quite like Moses. So I've managed to spend a lot of time with my mum and dad during this lockdown. We've managed to get on a lot with each other. Before, everyone just used to be at work, come back home, eat dinner and go to sleep. Not much, like just like a little bit of small talk, and then that's about it. Get back to work in the morning. Now that we do have the time to be with each other, we've just been connecting, watching some good old movies, having a bit of banter around, and yeah, in general, it's been really positive vibes. I mean, there are times where we're frustrated because of this lockdown. Obviously, being in home, quarantined, not being at work for such a prolonged amount of time can have effects on your mental health. But in general, we're really supporting each other and getting through this as best as we can. And what about you, Farah? How is quarantine and lockdown treating you? What have you learned?
Well, for me, it's been personally a challenge because I'm used to being constantly busy and constantly meeting, and I'm a people's person, so it's really like on a professional aspect, it was really difficult to adjust to it and also create a new work pattern. But on a positive side, I actually really, just like, similar to you guys, I mean, really enjoy spending time with my family and just really getting a chance to really like spend and see like, day-to-day activities and really just absorb and help out at home as well. And similar to you, Samir, as well, it can, this lockdown and it can be, it can affect your well-being and state of mind, but we just got to keep moving forward and be grateful that, we're healthy, we can be safe with our family and the loved ones as well. Yeah. And, but yeah, on that note, actually, I want to start off with the first question. First question that we want to ask our host and our guests as well is, what does family mean to you? And how does that, impact the way you interact with society? And yeah, so for me, family has always been the root of everything that I do. If it wasn't for my family, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing the work that I love to do. And, like I wrote that piece, home is where the heart is. And it really comes down to my family, especially my parents, and specifically my mother. So everything that I do, I try to honor my family's legacy and the lessons I've learned from them. So I'd be interested to hear from you guys and, what does family mean to you and what does it comprise of as well?
Let's start off with Moses. If you could tell us what family means to you.
No pressure. I think family to me, what family means is really morphed ever since starting my own. So I think there's a typical view in terms of when I was younger, when I was much younger, in my teenage years and stuff. We kind of go through that period where we're just frustrated with our parents. I was frustrated with my parents. Like, they don't understand me. I'm going through all the challenges in life. And I just almost wanted to break out. So family to me during that stage was anyone who understood me, anyone who took the time to actually get to know me. And due to frustrations at home and stuff, family wouldn't necessarily have been classified as blood relations, but rather friends who are literally like there for me and stuff. I'll be like, nah, they're family. But ever since starting my own family, like, my appreciation for family has just skyrocketed to the point where I appreciate blood family, but I've appreciated the community that I've built around me a lot more. And so family to me is much wider than just blood relations. It's a community of people who are truly there for me and I am there for them. So it can literally be via the internet. It could be like someone I just check up on, text messaging every now and then, this and that. But for me to truly have a heart for them and them to have a heart for my well-being, I'll classify them as family. So yeah, I think for me, family has been almost widened to be community. And the closer and the more invested we are in each other's lives, the more closer you come to being family. So I've had people who I've never known in my life, but now are like godparents to my children and stuff. But it's like I classify them as family. So yeah, family to me is just community. And the more invested you are, the more invested we are in each other's lives, the more closer you kind of come to being seen as family. So yeah, that's what I'd kind of, my broad definition of family, being a parent now and reflecting on what I would have classified as a family growing up. So it isn't limited to just blood relations. But now it is definitely included, and it's definitely like a part of it as well.
Amazing. For me, the definition of family would be centered around the word trust. With my immediate family, I think they're probably the only ones that I really and truly trust. With extended family, that's not so much the case. My mum and my dad always told me that you need to trust your immediate family first before anyone else, because we know so much about you, and don't be afraid to talk about any of your problems to us and whatnot. But sometimes that's not the case. So like when I was in high school and stuff like that, there were times where I feel like very like other people that go to high school as well, they feel like they're having an effect on their mental health in education, whether it be social aspects or the educational aspects of finding difficulties in learning. But I never used to communicate that to my immediate family. So it's taken time for me to not only trust them, but also trust myself to bring myself forward and raise any problems that might be there present in my life and try and find solutions with those other people. But obviously, family doesn't necessarily have to be your immediate or blood related, like you said. It could also be close friends. So I do have one of my close friends on this podcast, Kaled. I've known him since about 2007. So just around about 13 years now. And so I have something called a family test that I do for myself. So if you have like a friend that you know that you're connected with for more than 5 years, then that goes into like the bro category. So for me, yeah, that's always been something that I value whenever I make friends.
I like that. It's like a kind of like a test in a way. So
yeah, if you keep like consistent conversation and just hang out and for like more than 5 years. With Kaled, it's been like 13 years now. So I trust him a lot when it comes to situations I need to talk about. And we do talk about it over FIFA, even though he's a Liverpool fan. We still make what you call it? We still make an effort to be great
to be
friends.
there in each other's lives as well. Yeah. I love that. And I think, it's interesting because, we have our immediate family that we're born into, but then also life comes along, we meet people, we experience different circumstances, different setbacks as well. But there are people that come and go, and then there's certain people that do stay and have a big impact that you end up calling your family, and those turn out to be your community members, your co-workers. We're actually going into too much detail. I remember even me when I was a kid, and my family didn't have much, so I couldn't really do a lot of the activities that like going to cinema, going bowling, things that that was fun at that age. But one thing I remember, like one of my really, really close friend so for me, I'm Muslim, so I can only eat like halal meat and halal food. And I remember I used to go to one of my really good friends, and his dad was a priest, he was Christian. And whenever I used to go over to their house, they would always welcome me with open arms. His mom would go out of the way to buy halal meat, and she would invite me for dinner. Whenever they had activities and so forth, and I thought, wow, like this is generally good people that, and this is my friend who I consider like my brother, who included me in all the activities as well. And that's the first time I was like, wow, there's power to the relationships that you can build at that young age. It must have been like maybe 13 or 12 at that age. And it's interesting to see like the connections that we make. How about you, Ridwan? Like, how do you see family and what does it mean to you? And tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Of course. For me, family means that you share this bond on such a deep level. Even despite the fact your family might drive you mad, like my sister drives me incredibly mad sometimes. My little cousin drives me mad. They're both staying with me at the moment. But if anything was to ever to happen to them, I know for a fact I will go through so much just to make sure they're okay and be the crap of the other person, even though that's not my nature. But for me, it's having that connection with them, and also in terms of like with friends, I have very few friends that I do classify as a family, and that's because they are the ones that try and really understand me, the way I act, the way I behave, and for me, that they accept the way I am as well, just has made me appreciate them so much and everything. And I feel like when you grow up, you don't realize how important like your family is because you go through this crazy teen stage. But later on down the line, like for me, I've now appreciated my mom so much more because I understand like the little sacrifice that she does for us, how much she really like just a simple thing like how much she keep the house clean, and you don't realize how much effort it actually takes into like cleaning it, things like that, how much she cares the best for you, the kind of thing. So for me overall, it's being able to connect on a deeper level and just being able to be understanding with each other. So that's my definition of what family means to me.
Amazing. Thank you, Ridwan. And yeah, so let's move on to the next question.
Oh, before we do that, Kaled was we haven't.
Mr. Kaled, yes, please.
It's okay. Forget about me. First, I want to say thank you, Samir, for considering me as a bro. I consider you as a bro as well.
Oh,
so same love there. What does family mean to me? Family for me is being there for a person, no matter what, even if you have a fight or argument or if you haven't seen each other for a while, just being there whenever that person needs to be there. I've had that case many times, like everyone here has already said, back in high school, you feel like, you against the world, you're by yourself. You think there's no one that could connect to you, especially family. But as you grow older, you understand more and more about your parents, about family, about everything. When I was young, I never really had the option to bring friends over when I was back in early days of high school. So it was only family, so cousins, uncles, aunties, that's it. And even my parents' friends who considered them as family, we used to call them uncles and aunties, even though they were not blood related. Only because in my culture, they considered them as family instead of friends. At the moment, I'm growing up in a house where I have 3 young ones. One is in year 9, year 8, and in year 4. So there's like a massive generation gap between me and them. You can clearly see the difference between where I grew up compared to them. For instance, when I grew up, I was back in high school, back in the mid-2000s. So that's before, iPhones and when technology was much more expensive back then. While they, on the other hand, have the benefit of having their own iPhones, their own laptops, their own game consoles and everything. While me, on the other hand, it was only football, playing football outside, or just, play fighting in the house, that's it. So it's kind of, I'm happy and kind of sad seeing them growing up because they can't, go through my experiences. But on the other hand, I could relate to them more than my parents. My parents migrated here from Africa when they was really young. So I could relate to them more. So whenever they go through like any troubles in high school, in school, for instance, I could, talk to them and they'll understand that I've already been through them. But then again, they know that my experience is a bit different from them. I really do think best way a family to describe a family is if you manage to overcome a person flaws and problems, because no one is perfect. Of course, everyone has fights with anyone. For me personally, I personally had a fight with everyone. For instance, me and Samir had, a couple of fights in our lifetime. Not physical fights, of course. We never actually had a physical fight, surprisingly. But we had a lot of, we haven't spoken to each other for months, so we get angry at each other over stupid, silly things like, for instance, FIFA or football. I don't know. Can't remember the reasons why, but eventually we just come together, be friends, make up, that's it. Continue with our lives. And I do think that's the best way to create family.
I like that as well, because like you said, it's accepting the other person, and also you are bound to have arguments and fights, but at the end of the day, you know what this person is and what they stand for, and you make peace, and I think those arguments and those disagreements are bound to happen, but if you can overcome them and see the bigger picture, you build a stronger relationship with your friends and families as well. So amazing to see that. And I guess it'd be interested to hear your thoughts on any personal examples of good and bad relationships you've had in the past with family members, and how that's affected maybe you're moving forward as well. Has there been any changes in your life? So give you an example, like for me, I think once I graduated from uni, went into work, things changed in terms of my, how we say that we consider friends to be families as well. And I think, as soon as we come out, we go into the employment world, a lot of my friends, start to settle down, start their own family, their times and relationships changed, and then just new adjustments as well. So the things that we were able to do when we were younger or when we were studying together, we're not able to do as much as before because of new commitments and new responsibilities as well. And some of those really strong relationships had to evolve and adjust in order to become really strong and move forward as well. Someone like my really close friends, and you spend hours and hours and days. Now I get to see them maybe once or twice a month, if not sometimes longer. And some of the things I learned is, if something is really worth it, you make effort to build and make the relationship work. And that includes family, and that includes really close friends as well. So I'm interested to hear some of the examples of good and bad relationships and what you've learned from those situations as well.
Well, I'm a type of guy that if we haven't seen each other for over 10 years or something, I would just say hi and talk as if we just met yesterday. But then I do understand where you're coming from, Farah, because there's a lot of people. I guess it's common, unfortunately, where people just come and go in people's lives. There are people in the past I used to consider as really close, but I haven't spoken to them in so long that most likely they've completely forgot about me. So that's unfortunate case. I guess the best case scenario for me about bad and good relationships, probably my mom and her sister. They could have a fight and won't talk to each other for like a year and a half. No communication at all together. The reason why that was bad, because when I was younger, my cousins used to come over and we used to consider them as friends, and so we used to play with each other all the time. But then, if my mom and her sister or their mom have a fight, they can't come and see each other, so it's kind of lonely in the house. As well as not understanding why they're having a fight when I was young was really difficult to understand, because I was always afraid that this might happen to me as well. I may have a fight with my brother and that's it. We won't speak to each other for many years. And it's really common, like in films, books, and on the internet, where people talk about how they haven't spoken to a family relative, where they're considered family blood for many, many years, only because of really stupid things, I guess.
And it's interesting because a lot of those relationships can disappear or change over time, and it could be a number of factors. And one of the factors is employment and new relationships and starting a family. But I want to hear, Moses, what do you think? Have you had any examples of good and bad relationships, whether it be with family members or friends, and what you take away from those situations.
Yeah. So I kind of want to put an interesting spin on my examples. But I really wanted to touch quickly on something that Kaled mentioned in terms of like fights with people that you're in relationships with and stuff. And one quote that I really enjoy, and it's really shaped the way that I approach relationships in general, is that perfect love can only be built around imperfect people. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really impactful in the sense of like, it's easy to love people who do everything that you want them to do. Even as a parent, it's easy to love your children when their rooms are always tidy and they always chew with their mouth closed and like everything is on point. But when you're having to labor the fact and like having to remind them and everything like that, that's when your love for them is almost is tested. It's not that you love them any less, but it's like, I told you to clean your room 10 times. Why is your room still dirty? And it's almost difficult to express the love you have for them in that moment. And even just in general day to day, people will do things that will annoy you, and it's hard to recognize that no, like I still love them, I still I still value them as individuals. So yeah, just it always like it gets me to reevaluate my priorities whenever I think about that quote, perfect love. Perfect love is built around imperfect people, and so it's like I need people's like brokenness to be able to love them better. So I find that very interesting. But the examples that I wanted to give, 2 examples of a good relationship gone bad and a bad relationship gone good. And what I've learned from them. So the good relationship gone bad is a friend of mine that I had from secondary school. So I've known this guy for about 18 years, give or take. And like, he used to be one of the guys that I would hand on my heart. It's classic by now, this guy's a brother. And we've had really good relationships. Like, we used to be at each other's houses every weekend. We knew each other's family in and out. Like, we spent so much time together. But as we grew up and as our characters and natures started to develop and we started to mature as individuals, there was just something of his character that just wasn't sitting right. And I started to realize that just being around him was a bit more frustrating than I had initially anticipated. And like the relationship, there isn't like any animosity or anything like that, but we just naturally drifted away and started to spend less and less time with one another. And it hasn't necessarily gone bad, but I've just recognized that for me, what is really like crucial in my relationships is the person's character, where it comes back to what I was saying in terms of, are you truly there for me? And am I truly there for you? And if that's not necessarily the case, then I start to question how much we're investing in each other's well-being. And so in as much as I don't disregard you as a human being or as a person, it's like you almost start to lose that state as a family, where you're almost like you're a cool friend, but you're not quite family, because I don't necessarily feel as though you're there for me. It's almost you're there to almost make yourself feel better. And so, yeah, kind of maneuvering through that. But the example of this relationship that initially was bad, that went good, is actually my relationship with my dad. I grew up, I'm really grateful to grow up in a household with both my mum and my dad. But my family was very much centered around my mum. And so my mum had a really practical, hands-on input into both my life and all of my sisters' lives. So I've got 3 sisters, all older than me, and I'm the youngest. She had a real input into our lives. My dad was very much like the breadwinner, going out, getting food, coming in. When he gets home, he's tired, he goes to bed. So my mum was really like sitting with us and kind of getting things done. So as with most boys, I used to kind of see my dad as like the pinnacle of manhood and just wanted to be like him. But as I was growing up, I started to recognize the disconnect between myself and my dad, and started to feel as though he wasn't really there for me. And so that made me feel abandoned to a degree, and I started to resent him for not being there. And as a child, I didn't understand that his idea of fathering was ensuring that his family never went without, that his family had a good education, like they always had food on the table, clothes on their backs. And he didn't necessarily understand that his presence in my life was just as valued as what he could provide, even more so valuable than what he could provide financially. So as I grew up, I really resented him. I really disliked him as an individual, to the point of I had an argument with him and I shouted in front of his face, I don't classify you as my dad, and I just walked out. And yeah, it's I just kind of sat in that anger. But then as I grew and I started to interact with the world and I started to start my own family, I started to reevaluate what a father is and started to realize that my hatred for him actually made me focus on his attributes that I disliked, and I started to replicate some of those. But in recognizing that, again, perfect love is only developed around imperfect people. He is imperfect, and there are things that he got wrong. But for me to be able to develop love, I need to be able to forgive him for that, and I need to be able to look beyond that to some degree and to try and see how we can work together and repair relations. Now, it's difficult for a traditional African man to admit wrong and to repair relations with his son, but it's something that I'm I find value in, and I want to invest into it. And so, in as much as the relationship started off bad from my side, it's something that I have found great value in that it's allowed me to forgive. It's allowed me to recognize that in as much as there were things that I didn't think he provided, but he provided the best that he thought he could at the moment. And I didn't understand the pressures that were on him. Being a father now, I know the pressures that are on fathers, especially trying to be an active father. And so, yeah, it's just I've started to appreciate him a lot more, and it's made me a lot more intentional about pursuing that relationship with him that I felt I wanted, but still going at a pace that he's comfortable with, and not just trying to overwhelm him with daddy love and just run up and hug him at this big age and stuff. But it's just just being intentional about investing into my relationship with my dad. So those are two examples of relationships. One relationship that was really good, but due to different things that have developed along the way, have almost doesn't hold as much weight as it did before. And another relationship that was really in a negative and toxic place that now I'm starting to see the value and worth, and I'm being intentional about trying to invest into that. And what I've learned is just, especially from my dad, is that, everyone makes mistakes. And I'm sure that my kids will be going counseling and slagging me off soon. But it's just being intentional about showing my kids that I love them and being there for them physically and emotionally and stuff, just as much as I am there provision wise. So yeah, just trying to be holistic in my presence in my children's lives and showing them that relationships are more important than money. So yeah, those are the things that I would say stand out for me. I hope I answered the questions.
No, you definitely answered the question, and you raised even more questions, and I think it leads really well to our last topic of discussion. And I guess it'd be really interesting to explore everyone's thoughts on this as well. And just, I guess, in a few words, reflecting back on your relationships with your family and friends, do you think this has an impact? I think, Moses, you're much more close. You've got a family. You've started. I think maybe we can dive in with you. It'd be really interesting to see, and I think some aspects you touched on a little bit, but your past relationships, whether it be with your family, friends, or community members, has it impacted your future in terms of the family that you want to start? And what kind of influences, help to design the family that you want? And what role do you want to play in your family?
I think I've really thought about this. And I think the impact, the role that I want to play in my family is, I think I touched on it briefly in my last answer. I want every member of my family, like immediate nuclear family, to know that they are more precious than money. That for me, that's like relationships are more valuable than money. That for me is like, if you can sum up what I want to leave with my family, I'll be like, relationships are more important than money. You can make money at any given time. You can find a part-time job, you can do it. But if you have unhealthy relationships, that is really detrimental to you as a human being. I think life is the enjoyment of life, or the value of your life, is built up in experiences rather than in monetary gains and what you have in your bank account. So wealth, I'll classify wealth as experiences rather than actual riches. But again, that's almost like a first world take on it. Because if you're in a place where you don't have food and stuff, but you've got a loving family, yes, you're going to feel good. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're going to be like, but I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a place where I'm quite comfortable, in as much as there's still room for growth. But I still would like to leave that legacy of just intimacy with those around you is more valuable than anything else. Yeah.
I think that's a powerful lesson there. I think I completely agree with you, and I feel the same way as well. The value of it's priceless, of the value of family and the relationships that you build as well. Opening up to the group as well. Ridwan, what do you think? What have you learned so far from the previous relationships you've had, and has this impacted your family that you want to start in the future? If you want to start a family, and what role would you want to play in that as well?
So all the previous relationship I've had with people, so I've had some good relationship and some bad relationship through family and friends. And when I think back to it, looking forward into the future, I know for a fact that when I have children, inshallah, one day, I would like my children to explore more in life, which at the same time is one of the hardest things in a Muslim family, to letting your children go out traveling more, being able to do whatever they want instead of having a little plan for them. So I know that's one thing that I would one day let my children do, even though the worst nightmare for a parent is that you can't always control what bad thing might happen to them. But I'm a believer that it's best to experience the way life is and then help along the way. The other thing I would also, in terms of my future, would also be there will be more doing a lot more tradition, because that's one thing I've analyzed from the experience I have with my family. I love especially the Ramadan time, which is so focused on family, is such an amazing time, because that's the time we actually sit down together, we actually talk, which we don't do a lot of that. So for me, I want to continue that, not just during the Ramadan, but do little things where we sit down together. So that's one thing I would say about me. Yeah.
And like I said earlier, for me, there's a generation gap between me and my younger siblings. And what, like Ridwan said, that I grew up in a strict family, a Muslim family. So my parents migrated here. So what I try to do is, the younger siblings, what I try to do is I try to make them, feel more open, feel more free to express their thoughts. While me, on the other hand, when I was younger, it's there's so much pressure on me because I was the oldest in the family. I have to be the perfect child. I have to get these grades. I have to, go to uni. I have to do all this. While I'm trying to relieve that pressure from the young ones. That way they could, do whatever they want, instead of, someone telling them you have to be this in order to, fulfill their parents' dreams or wishes. So yeah, hopefully one day, inshallah, when I have kids myself, I want to be more like that, be more, emotionally connected to my kids and allow them to freely express themselves. Of course, I won't let them, do illegal things like, taking drugs and, committing crimes. I'll make sure I'll be more firm with them. But other things, expressing, for instance, if they love music, I'll let them go into music. If they love, traveling the world, I let them be. But you know, every parent's worst nightmare is if, you know, the child, something dangerous happened to them because of your own choices that you made. So I guess I'm doing a young something more like experiment, see whether or not my way of thinking is better than my parents' way of thinking. Even though eventually, hopefully, my way of thinking overcomes their way of thinking, and the younger siblings have a way better childhood than I had when I was younger.
Thank you, Kaled. Thank you for sharing your insight. And yeah, we're coming up to the end of our episode, and I want to take this moment to thank all our guests, Kaled, Moses, and Ridwan, and my co-host, Samir. Yeah, so this is our first episode for the new season, second season of Hidden Voices. We want to do more episodes in the coming weeks, and especially now we're in a lockdown, we want to explore some really fascinating stories. Like Samir said at the beginning of the intro, this theme of this episode or this season is life. So we'll be looking at different aspects of life. So today we've looked at family and the different aspects of family. It's such an interesting topic, and we can unpack it even further if we had a bit more time, but this is something that we're going to be exploring as we move forward. Samir, anything you want to say to our listeners before we wrap up?
Thank you for listening. And next week, we'll be exploring employment. So tune in for that, guys. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as SoundCloud. And be sure to look out for a new episode on ScribersHive.com. Thanks for listening.